So good afternoon everybody, myself Acharya Vishvendra. I was just discussing about the neural pathways. Let's start with a simple example. Suppose we want to study a simple concept of physics, Newton's second law, let's say. So it states that suppose there is a body of mass m, it is moving with a certain velocity v and has a certain momentum p. So Newton's second law states that the force acting on the body is equal to the rate of change of linear momentum of the body. Suppose we want to learn this thing. So when we want to learn this thing, then there is involvement of two things here. First is the brain and second is the mind. So learning anything is basically related to the brain and the mind, and obviously their coordination, that how they connect, how they talk, how they communicate with each other. And this communication deals with the brain waves. So fundamentally there are three dimensions of learning: the brain, the mind, and the connecting link between them, which are called the brain waves. And these brain waves can be categorized into 5 things, which are alpha, beta, gamma, delta and theta, where delta corresponds to the lowest frequency and gamma corresponds to the highest frequency. So this coordination between brain and mind is a game of frequencies of the brain waves, and there is a switching mechanism involved. Suppose you want to learn this thing, then initially what you need to do is that your mind-brain system is reacting to certain thoughts of consciousness. So for learning anything, first of all, you have to take your focus away from the consciousness to the domains of the unconsciousness. And the best method to do that is free visualization. So if we try to develop a mechanism for learning, then the first thing is drift from conscious to the unconscious mind. And this drift involves certain visualization. And that certain visualization change the way how we feel things. Suppose how I learn this thing is that I'll visualize that there is something, there is some mass, let's say example of a cart, or let's take the example of a car. It's moving on a road. So I'll first visualize the car, the road, and it is moving with a certain velocity. So this is the first thing that I'm going to do, is to shift my focus from the conscious to the unconscious mind, and then freely visualizing a certain event corresponding to that, and then trying to update what I already knew. So it's just like a sort of, we can say that a hierarchical pattern of learning, you see. Or a more general way, we can say that as a recursive way of learning. It's just like, there are like the neural patterns like this. So it goes like this. So what we have to do is that we just need to connect the different neurons, the different neural pathways, and that connection of neurons leads to something called as the neural pathway. And if that neural pathway is correctly made, is correctly developed, then we learn correctly. And if there is some problem with that neural pathway, then we fail to retrieve what we learned. So in this way, learning is just a game of memory. You just memorize certain things. Sometimes there is confusion between memory and logic. I mean, the logical mind asks for the reasons, but memory dominates fundamentally. if we think in depth, everything that, every law that has been made was made during the time of Big Bang. It was always there, it is always there, and it will always be there. So whether you think or don't think, that doesn't matter. Rules of nature are independent of your thinking. So doesn't that means memory dominates fundamentally at the cosmic level, even at the quantum level? Electrons choose a specific frequency photons to access from one state of energy to another. For example, if we take the example of hydrogen atom. So in ground state electrons, if we assume that atoms are in vapor state, so the first state corresponds to a total energy of minus 13.6 electron volt, the second one to minus 13.4 by 4, that is minus 3.6, minus 3.4 electron volt. Then we have minus 1.85, then 0.85, and it goes like this. Now the very amazing thing about quantum mechanics is that an electron does not accept every frequency photon. It's just accept only certain specific frequency photons. Now the question is how it know that it has to accept what is the testing mechanism involved over there? I mean, the interaction between an electron and photon is very mysterious phenomenon. So there is a choice, conscious choice involved. It seems like electron and photon communicate in a certain metaphysical way. They come to know about each other and they interact. If that communication is okay, just like two human beings, why they communicate with each other? There is a certain give and take mechanism involved. Two people interact only if they have mutual benefits. Only then that relation will be, will hold with time. If there is either give or either take only, then there will be problematic relation. So there is a very, very strong analogy between electronic transitions and the behavior of humans or even animals or even any conscious form of energy. Everybody is involved in a certain way of give and take mechanism to make them access the higher dimensions of life. So that entire thing which is going on inside you, that quest of happening something, that very fundamental processing is the neural pathway development. And it involves three things: the brain, the mind, and the brain waves. And when they are in a certain synchronized way, when they are properly mapped up, then we have properly developed neural pathway, which is corresponded by good output as done by good students. Whereas if there is an issue with any or the combination of any of these three elements, then certainly output is going to be affected. When I was a student, I used to observe my teacher, my fellow students, and even me myself. I used to observe the teacher, that how he is able to retain so much information in his instantly from his mind-brain system. I also tried what is the mechanism of information access, and before information access, how he stores such a huge information in his mind-brain system, what process, what algorithm does he or she use. Because the question is about the algorithm of that, the process of storing information in mind. Because if you know the process, then the rest of all is just an impact of time, just a matter of time. The process is very important. Often the process is involves all the technicalities, all the complexities, and once you decode those complexities, you know the mechanisms of dealing with the complexities, then things are very simple. So that's what I'm trying to develop. I'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you.